Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abitchonistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security-oriented policies to guide the state of Israel. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. Sorry for our delay on getting started right now. We're having a little bit of a network issue over here with one of our guests, but hopefully we'll be able to knock it out soon. And without wasting too much time, I'm going to go right now to Danny Seaman to provide an update. And I just, so everyone knows, Danny's jumping in literally at the last second. So Danny, thank you so much for being able to join us right now and share a little bit about what's happening.
Hi. Well, I was looking forward to hear, Naka, so I hope you're able to work this out. While you're trying to do that, just give the I'll give the little update on things that were happening today. Activity in Gaza is continuing. The cabinet is meeting to make a decision on moving into Rafah with all that means. I think they're meeting later on this evening to determine when. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And Israel, it could be in a few days. I'm not aware of the details, but I'm sure a lot of those will come out. There was a terrorist attack today in the Jordan Valley. An Arab there opened fire on a school bus, injuring a child, and attacked a vehicle. There were 2 people injured in the vehicle. Ironically, the 2 members in that vehicle were peace activists, if you want to call them that. They were there to assist the Arabs in Judea and Samaria, and in a vehicle that they purchased just recently following their vehicle last month. A woman driving that vehicle, which belongs to the organization, she was stopped in the middle of the street outside of Jericho and assaulted, and the car was stolen. She was also a member of this peace organization, and members, they bought a new vehicle and went out to assist the Arabs there today. And again, they were assaulted by the Arabs. So it's basically, you see that these terrorists, they don't really care if you're with them, against them, you're for peace, against peace. They want to kill Jews. They want to kill Israelis. Luckily today, they didn't succeed in that, neither with the 13-year-old child or with these 2 activists. So those were the main things that were happening here. Moshe, if you feel that you can have the interview with Naka, go ahead and stop me. I think those are the 2 major issues. There's another issue that happened today that a college in the United States awarded AP an award for its footage, for its pictures taken during the pictures of the year. And it is so despicable and so disgusting that they awarded this prize to AP for the staff members. And the image that they chose was this infamous image of the young Israeli woman who was assaulted and murdered in a vehicle. And they seem to, this being one of the photos of the year, and awarding the Hamas activists who are employed by, and the Hamas terrorists, there's no 2 ways about it. They can deny it as much as they want. The fact that they didn't check the background of these photographers, and when you know in a society, and I mentioned this in our briefings before, that they employ people in Gaza when they know that Hamas is in control of everything, and they play innocent as if they don't know that these are Hamas activists. And then these are awarded prizes. It is just, there's no words to describe this. A woman who was physically, sexually assaulted, murdered, her bones were broken. The people in the car were cheering it. People were spitting on her. What happened to the Me Too movement? And I don't want to even go to the irony of how hypocritical these people are. But that was another thing that happened today that I hope that the outcry by individuals here, and if anybody wants more information about that, they can turn to you and can forward it to me, and I'll give them information to speak out against this.
Danny, thank you so much for that. And I'm glad you spoke about that, because it's really appalling, that award that went out. So thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in, and apologies on not going live yesterday. And thank you for all of the well wishes. It's nice to know that when we don't go live, people notice and they care. And I believe yesterday was only the 2nd time since the outbreak of this war that we missed a briefing. I have a very special guest right now. Hopefully the internet bandwidth will allow our next interview, which is with Naka Pitia. Naka, thank you for joining. You'll introduce yourself in a second. Naka has a very unique and inspiring story as an asylum seeker here in Israel who escaped South Sudan. And I believe, Naka, you provide a tremendous insight into this broader conflict here in Israel. So Naka, thank you so much for joining.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I hope you can hear me well.
We can hear. If you could maybe to begin, just introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your story before we start talking about October 7th.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Naka. I grew up in Israel. I came to Israel through Egypt. I was born a refugee in Egypt. I came to Israel when I was 9 years old. My mother was religiously persecuted, and she had to run away from Sudan, which what was Sudan back then. And she had to run away to Egypt, and that's when I was born, basically a refugee who had to go through also a lot of racism, a lot of hardships and then my mother decided that we should come to Israel. I'm a student, and I am also standing with Israel. And the last 2 months, we've been doing a lot of things, and we did a walk to Jerusalem with my community, the South Sudanese community who are living in Israel, who are also asylum seekers. And we are Christians, and we are very much supporting Israel, and we're not afraid to support Israel. We're not afraid to stand against the things that we know that we have gone through, and we know that Israel has been a friend to us from the beginning of our country needing help. Israel was the first country to lend help to South Sudanese when we were fighting against the Sudan government.
Thank you. And maybe you could go into, I know it's painful to bring up this past, but your experience living in Egypt, meaning prior to Israel, you had a stopover in Egypt. What was that like?
So my mother is the one that had to run away to Egypt. My mother was religiously persecuted because one of the things that we were fighting against in Sudan was basically the oppression of religion, which is the Islamic religion. And my mother is Christian, South Sudanese. Majority of South Sudan is Christian. And my mom had to run away because she was basically blamed and threatened that she could be basically killed because she was trying. They said that she was trying to convert other Islamic into Christianity. So she had to run away from her home, from her family, to Egypt. And there I was born. And I was born into a world where I do not know what it is to belong. I do not know what it is to actually feel safe. I do not know what it is to feel comfortable. I know that I am Christian, so I am bad, and that anybody else that is around me can do whatever they want to do around me. And the racism there was very harsh, very violent. And coming to Israel was actually a very much basically rescuing us. My mother chose to rescue us after what happened in front of the UN in Mustafa Mahmoud, when South Sudanese decided to stay there and to ask the UN for a few help, and the UN couldn't do that, and the Egyptian government couldn't do that. And in the end, the Egyptians police came and persecuted and killed a lot of South Sudanese back then. And from there, a lot of the South Sudanese decided that the only place that they can go to and seek refuge is Israel. And that is because of our history that we have with Israel.
Thank you. So let's now move forward into the story. October 7th. What did October 7th mean for you and your community? And you're in Haifa, I believe.
I'm in Haifa, but when October 7th happened, I was in Eilat with my friends. We were all South Sudanese, and we saw the videos, basically, as anybody who was Israeli that was just sitting at home, and all of a sudden the videos were all over social media. And we were seeing the videos, and we started talking about our experiences with Arabs, our experiences with Islam, and how we basically, like, we felt very relatable to what was happening. We felt that it was sad, and it was something that we never expected that would happen here in Israel. And we knew of the hardships, and we felt our pain, or we felt Israel's pain, but from a place of, yes, we have actually been through that. It wasn't just a sympathy, but it was a sympathy from an authentic point of view, from a place that we know that we have gone through it. We have had the same fight. And just because Israel has stood with us, that we are willing to stand with Israel at the same time.
So first off, thanks, of course, for being here, for standing with Israel, for sharing your story. Many people around the world look at this war as part of a broader conflict in the Middle East about borders. And there are people who are more educated and view this war as a war of anti-Semitism. But I'm curious what you think, because you don't see this as anti-Semitism, because you're Christian and you've also experienced this persecution. So what are your thoughts on the real nature of this war?
I think seeing it as anti-Semitism is also something, but I think it's bigger than that. I think the world has to really come down and realize what is happening with these extremist Islamic groups that are just going around and killing people in Africa. It's become a real issue, and also here in Israel, going through the border. And I believe that Israel has done and has fought back and has defended itself, unlike other countries that were having really hard time fighting itself back in Africa. So I think as a Christian who is also persecuted by Islam, who's also persecuted by the Arabs, I think that this need to be addressed in a broader point of view and really like look down into it and seeing what can be done to condemn it and to stop it from happening. And Israel needs more support of people to do that.
Sure. And some of our viewers are asking, just for clarity, in terms of the Sudanese community here in Israel, the extent that people serve in the IDF or other national service type programs. I know that there is what to talk about, if you could share that.
Yes, of course. And that's something that I've also been working on a lot this past few months, this past few years, actually. The South Sudanese community came to Israel to seek asylum from Egypt, running away from Egypt, and also the killing of Egypt. The South Sudanese community have been here for 20 plus years. There have been people that have been here 20 plus years. And right now we're not being recognized. We don't have any status in Israel. So not only is it hard for us to just live a regular life and to have regular jobs, but it is even harder for us to actually just go to IDF, serve, help, build bridges between Israel and South Sudan. And that is one thing that we're actually seeking from the government officials and from people that are able to help us out. We want to help Israel. We want to be here. We want to be a voice from Africa, a voice from a different point of view that can be heard and people can actually listen to us. But we also need to have the opportunities and the options to actually do it.
Do you think that Africa or the world over understands the persecution that you're talking about? Or do you think, again, they choose to ignore it, they choose to see this as a limited issue of Jews in the Middle East?
I think a lot of Africans, mostly because of Christianity, I would say that we do stand with Israel and we do believe and we do understand it, mostly because as you are born, all you learn about is Israel and Jerusalem, and you pray for Israel, you pray for Jerusalem. And so whenever an attack or something would happen to Jerusalem, Africa as in general, usually like hold a prayer to Israel, hold a hand to Israel. I believe that, so yeah, that's what I believe.
That's beautiful. I wish we all prayed for Jerusalem as fervently as you do. Can you touch on a little bit? Again, I don't want to pry and go anywhere that you feel uncomfortable
Oh, no, it's okay.
with.
It's completely okay. That's what I'm here for, and I would love to explain.
In terms of the prejudice or the challenges you have faced being in a Jewish country, do you feel like if you could get a ticket to the US, you would move there tomorrow, or are you a proud Israeli despite, again, the legal status issues?
I think if I would get a ticket, I would move to the US just because of status issues, but also I love this country. I love living here. Not to say it's easy, not to say there's no racism. Of course, there's challenges, and of course there are things to work with. But I also know, coming from where I came from, which is basically Egypt, for me this is the complete opposite of that. And for me, if I have the opportunity, the option, I would love to thrive. I would love to help. I would love to be part of the community, of the Jewish community, the Israeli community, and actually live here as one of. But it seems to be harder than what we think it should be.
I think we're having some internet problems. It's getting a little dicey. Danny, are you able to hear okay?
No, I'm losing her, but if Naka can hear me, because I saw somebody ask the question about her English, which is superb. Naka, שמעת אותי?
כן, אני שומעת גם
אוקיי.
עברית.
בואי נדבר קצת עברית. הכל בסדר, את מרגישה טוב?
כן, אתה מצוין. אני
Right,
סליחה
No, אנחנו לא שומעים אותך. I'm doing this deliberately. I don't know if you were able to hear this. I wanted people to be impressed not only with her English, but also with her Hebrew. And she's very much sounds like an Israeli. Nobody would know that she's not. Now, you were 9 years old when you came here.
I was 9 years old when I came.
You know, I came from the States. I was 10 years old. So I also, my Hebrew, nobody knows that I'm an American when I speak Hebrew. So I guess that age gives you a certain advantage.
It's always a surprise, yes.
What are you doing these days in Israel? Where you're a student, you said?
Yes, I'm staying at the IC government. I am also working with my tutors, trying to get status. So that's basically most of the job that I'm doing right now. So yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we can continue this. Your connection isn't, it's a little off.
Wow. All right.
Okay, Naka, I turned
Maybe,
off your video. Maybe
Yeah,
now it'll be a little bit better.
Who else? You're here with your mother? Your mother is here as well? Naka? Pasa.
We lost her. Okay, Danny, I feel bad we had to cut that short, but Danny, let me ask you a question that relates to her story. And one of the reasons we thought it was so important for her to share it, that we think we're doing a service when we talk about Israel in the media, about portraying this as a global fight against the Jews and a global anti-Semitism problem. But she raises a powerful point that it's not about Judaism, it's not about anti-Semitism, it's about the East versus the West, it's about radical Islam versus Jews and Christians together. So I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that? Should we be developing new marketing campaigns and public diplomacy efforts to express that?
I don't know if the campaigns, I think what people know is that what Israel and a lot of Israelis are saying, this is not only about Israel. Of course, we're in the front line, but this is a battle against extreme Islam, against jihadist Islam. And African countries, and especially the Christians in African countries, are suffering from this. Christians in Egypt are suffering from this. We know that the Christians from ISIS suffered from ISIS in Iraq. So this is nothing new. This is not Israel making excuses. And people try to divert attention away from it and focus, just like the whole issue. I usually, and I think you've noticed that I tend to call them Arabs who live in Gaza or Arabs who live in Judea and Samaria. But they created this whole Palestinian issue, first off, to shift the attention away from the Arab-Israeli conflict to make it the Israeli-Palestinian. Therefore, they're the underdog. And it's worked brilliantly, as we can see. And the colleges in the United States and universities, they all today focus on the poor Palestinians, but they're part of a 1.2 billion population in the Middle East in territory that ranges greater than the territory of the United States. And here Israel, this small country, and yet they focus all the attention on us. So the same thing happened with the jihadism. Instead of looking at that and the threat that it poses to anybody who is not them, they try to divert attention away from it. And Naka, this young, wonderful, beautiful woman, intelligent, so capable, she is a refugee and has the status of a refugee in Israel from her entire life. As she said, she's from nowhere, and she's only one person. And there are hundreds of thousands and millions of such people who have been uprooted. Many of them are in Israel, but they're throughout the Middle East, and those who've been more successful live now in Canada and the United States and Europe. And we have to remain with the focus on this. The battle that Israel is facing, as I stress this, is the battle of many people who are not Muslims that are suffering around the world. Before we cut up, I just want to mention, people I see have asked, the award that AP was was received was from the Reynolds Journalism Institute, RJI, and it's part of the University of Missouri. They're the ones who gave out this prize, and they give it out to different journalists for different things, but one of it was given to AP and their staff members with the photo of Shani Luke.
Thank you, Danny. And I want to repeat one thing that Naka said, because it may have cut out a bit, and I hope I do it justice that I heard it properly. I asked her about the extent to which she's proud to be in Israel, or if she would emigrate to the US if possible. And I believe the answer was that she would emigrate to the US simply because of the lack of citizenship in Israel. You know, living in Israel long term and not having what's called a Tudat Zehut, not having the actual, you know, the identity papers is obviously overwhelmingly difficult. But beyond that major technical issue in life, she seems to be a very proud Israeli, a proud Christian living here in Israel. So I certainly respect that answer. Naka, I know you're still on. I thank you for joining us. Maybe we'll try again for some closing remarks that you can share with our audience before we close out the briefing. I'm gonna unmute you.
Okay. I think something is wrong this time.
We hear you. The floor is yours. We got a few minutes left. What would you like to say before we close up?
I would like to say that we hope that all of the hostages will be brought home safely. And I personally, and also representing my community, we all stand with Israel always. And we know Israel is doing what a lot of African countries we hope that would do to fight an attack, to fight a terror attack, which have killed women, children, and nothing can ever justify that. And I am happy to be here today, and I'm glad that everybody was able to hear me, even though it was only partly. And we'll always be praying for Israel. Thank you very much.
Naka, thank you so much. Danny, thank you. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning in to this briefing. We are changing the clocks here in Israel this evening, so we will be back with you next week, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to be back to 10 a.m. Eastern time starting on Monday. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.